Nice to have you here this morning. Wonderful. Let's see, it looks like it's 9:59, 1 minute. We'll get started right at 10 o'clock. So as always, have a little water nearby, hi Mindy, welcome. Have all your tools and things on hand, maybe your box with your balls or a little container like I have mine. Have your blankets, have a chair nearby for stability if you need that, or you can just like be next to your couch or even have a hand to the wall. We're going to do some movements that you might want, like a bar, like something to hold on to. So, all right, great. All right, let's get started. Let's get rolling, as they say. So I'd like for you to put everything down, bring your full attention and awareness into your body. Perhaps draw the hands together. So in yoga tradition, the right side of the body is like masculine solar energies. The left side is feminine lunar energies. And so this bringing the two hands together, uniting right and left brain and uniting solar and lunar energies together to bring balance to the two as we're coming up on equinox, right? We're wanting to be in a state of balance. So drawing those lunar and solar energies together, perhaps right in front of your heart, and let yourself take a couple of loud sighing breaths. And again. Really using the exhale to just get rid of all the lists, all the errant thoughts, all the bouncing, and bring your attention fully present into this moment. One more big breath. Great. And then as we begin, I'd like you to think about something that you really like about yourself. Something that you like about yourself. Maybe it's that you're funny. It's always my thing I choose. Maybe it's that you're kind. Maybe it's that you did something nice for someone recently. You're thoughtful. Think about a way that you show up for others, something that you like about yourself. And just to let that go through your whole body. Like, yeah, I'm here. I'm showing up. This is how I'm helpful. I like this about myself. So let's start with some kindness toward ourselves. Press your feet down into the floor. Let your legs start to feel a little stronger. Relax your hands down by your sides. Open your eyes. Inhale, shoulders up to the ears. And exhale down. All right, so today we're going to continue our journey. I reread the survey every time I'm planning class to see where we're at and what we need to be working on. Right now, we're going to start, I might adjust this actually up this way. We're going to start with some movement, and we're going to do some little bit of squats. And so I want you to get into doing some kind of slow squats with your feet about hip distance apart. I'm going to do it so that you can see. So feet a little hip distance apart, maybe a little wider, and then nice and slow. Just down and up, just like that. And down and up. I'm going to see if I can get a little more of myself in here. And so the slow moving squats really help to train the muscles. So I don't care if my head's in it. So we're just helping the muscles to train, to work together. So we have more knee issues that we need to kind of address. And we're going to start working down into the ankles. Had some folks say they had some ankle instability, ankle pain, knee instability, knee pain. And so we're going to kind of tie those together as we go down lower in the body. Now this right here, what we're doing, these nice slow squats, I'd like you to look down at your feet. It's fine to turn your toes out a little bit. Some folks get really strict on keeping the toes forward. It doesn't really work for everybody. So if it feels more comfortable and easier, and when the wider your feet are, the more you want to have your toes turned out. See that your knee starts tracking over like the middle toe. And this is a great movement break to take throughout your day, especially if you're having knee issues. If you are having knee issues, just go down to where like it might start to grab or not feel good and then push back. Don't go deep into pain ever, like back off, go, oh, okay, what's just the right amount? And if your right amount of squatting is just this, then that's fine. I'm gonna turn sideways so you can see it that way. It might just look like this. You can take every opportunity to love yourself, bringing your hand to your heart, bringing some compassion to yourself. Your squat might look deeper, might look like this, and that's great too. It's a great thing to do while you're brushing your teeth. You can get even 100 squats in a day, just if you do your toothbrushing squats, brushing your teeth and doing your squats. So now from this, we're gonna start to stand up on the other leg and lift the knee. So we squat, stand to the right, lift the left knee. Squat, stand to the left, lift the right knee. So just kind of go in like this. You could have a chair or a wall nearby on each side. Little squat, lift. Little squat, lift. Little squat, lift. Can you do it more slowly so that as you come to stand on that left leg, lift that right knee slow. Right foot comes down. Lift that left knee slow. Push the right foot into the floor. Left foot comes down. Bring the weight to the left. Push the left foot in. Right knee lifts. Strong, strong standing leg. One more time each side. Lift. And squat. And lift. And squat. Go a little lower if you can, as long as it's not painful. And we're going to do 5 little bounces. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Get down lower in the squat as you can. And then push yourself up to straight side bend. Hands down along the thighs. Right arm, left arm comes up, slide down the right thigh. Switch sides. Slide down the left thigh, open the right side. Great, and then hands come back to the hips. And we're gonna go into some like heel lifts. So it's gonna look like this. I'm not feeling pleased with how this is coming out. Okay, so you can bring your hands to the wall if you need, step your feet about hip distance apart, and then lift the heels, and then very slowly lower them down to the floor, pushing the heels slowly to the floor. Lift up, slowly lowering. Again, lift up, slowly lowering. Now this time you're gonna lift up, you're gonna stay with the heels lifted, squat, straighten the knees, lower the heels. And now we can do that faster. Lift the heels, squat, straighten the knees, lower. And you don't have to use the wall if you don't need. You could play with, it's gonna make you use all the little tiny muscles to balance. It's hard for me to talk it and balance, right? So why do we work on this balance, the non-supported, right? You could have the wall right nearby if you need, right? Lift the heels, squat, straighten, bend. Now, if you take your hand off the wall, it's so much harder, right? It's so much harder because there's all those little tiny minutia, little tiny muscles that are trying to stabilize the knee, the ankle, and the hip. Do this practice. If you're having imbalance issues, hip weakness, ankle weakness, knee weakness, this is the key practice that you need to do. Lift the heels, bend, straighten the knees, and drop. You need to do things that engage. This is why machines don't work as well as body weight training, because they don't work those deep core stabilizing muscles. Machines are more isolating. that make sense? Like at the gym, the machines, right? So now you're going to lift your heels. You're just going to walk around a little bit with your heels lifted, activating the calves. Keep the heels lifted. Can you balance on the right foot? Oh. Can you balance on the left foot, heels lifted? Oh. You can have that chair or wall nearby. One more time each side. Keep the heels lifted, really strengthening the calves right now. Lift the left knee. What? And other side, last one. Right, I'm doing that so that you can see I'm holding the wall. Lift, drop. Bring your hands down to the floor. Step your feet a little wide, little side to side, wide angle stretching. Take some breaths. So some folks talked about their pelvis being off, their hips being off. That is going to have an effect all the way down. It will contribute to low back pain, and it may also contribute to knees and ankle stuff. So I have a video on my YouTube channel about, do you have one hip that sits higher than the other? Here's a practice that you can do throughout your day to help balance that. When I don't want to do it here because we have limited time, but that's something that's going to help serve you as you continue through. So we're going to link that video because it takes a little bit of time and a mirror and all that. So we're going to link that video when we send this recording out. So you can add that in to help balance the hips and the height of the pelvis from each side. So we're going to do leg swings, other side, leg swings. And so today, what we're going to do is a little bit of feet work, some calves and ankle stuff, and we're going to start with some general adductors and hamstrings on the chair. Then we're going to work on the wall, releasing some glutes and stuff, go down the outer thigh like we did, and then down into these ankle stabilizing muscles. And then we'll grand finale on the floor, doing some releases in the calf muscles themselves. So now I want you to have that chair nearby or a wall that you can support yourself on. And I'm just going to change this angle. I'm just not feeling super excited about that. So we're going to see if I can get this back more. Okay. So you may not see my face. I'm okay with that. You should be okay with that too. Let's see what we can do here. So we're going to do some sort of ballet bar like exercises. So you might want that chair nearby. And you're going to start to lift that right leg forward. Now, remember, we talked about when you put your weight onto the left, if you have hip weakness, that femur is going to keep going out. If this is the hip that you have weakness on, we've got to keep that femur tucked in. And we do that by lifting the right hip up toward the shoulder first. So watch that. As we shift our weight to the left, that right hip lifts first up toward the shoulder. And then you push that left leg down, and we're just going to do some like point your toes and leg lifts. We're going to do 5 to the front, 4, 5, then out to the side, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then to the back, 5, 4, 3, 2, keep that right hip lifting, 1, out to the side and hold, out to the front and hold, bend the knee, grab underneath the thigh, lift that knee toward the right shoulder, and then release other side. So we're building strength and stability around the pelvis, which helps to build strength and stability in everything down the chain, knees and ankles. So Bring your weight into the right leg. First step, especially if that hip keeps going out, first step is to lift the left hip toward the shoulder. Press the right foot into the floor. 5, leg lifts. 4, doing our ballet workout. 3, 2, and 1, out to the side. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And then 5 to the back. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Out to the side and hold. Out to the front and hold. And back. Great. You're going to step your feet a little wider. One more strengthening practice that we're doing today. Bring this up a little bit more. Okay, you're going to step your feet a little wide. Keep the knees bent. Bring your weight over to the left. Lift that right hip and lift the right knee. And can you straighten and bend that left knee? Ooh, balancing on that foot. And then we're going to switch sides. And again, your balance might just be a little tiny movement, right? Can you get it a little deeper? Ankle stability, hip stability, knee strengthening and stabilizing. Switch back to the left side. Lift the right knee. Bend, straighten, bend, straighten. 2 more. 1, switch. Bend both knees. Bring the weight to the right. First step, lift the left hip. Then lift the left knee up. 4 times. Bend, straighten, bend, straighten. 2, and 1. Come back down into standing forward fold. Feet nice and wide. A little bit of side to side again. So we're just really activating the muscles around the ankles, around the knees, around the pelvis to build more strength and stability in the lower body, right? And what gets us out of strength and stability is tension and trigger points and old injuries and bad habits in our posture, which leads to imbalances in tone and functionality of the muscles. So I want you to get in your chair. And we're going to use the bigger ball, the bigger myofoam ball. We're going to do a little adductor magnus, a little hamstring, quick release in the chair. Do, 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 do. So just lean back. Get that bigger ball underneath the hamstrings on the right side. You can, of course, do this on the floor. I'm just going to give a quick hydration release in those hamstrings. So key. If you sit, right, your hamstrings are going to be a little dry and a little tight. So if you sit, you'll want to do this every day a little bit, right? Just a little bit. Doesn't take much. Okay, so now we've done some hydration of the hamstrings. Now we're going to get into that adductor magnus in the chair. So we find that thick tendon up by the pelvis. We're going to get right behind that. So if your pelvis is off, one side sitting higher than the other in general, or you have a leg length inequality, that might be causing knee issues and ankle issues further down the line. So we're going to help balance the pelvis by releasing hamstrings and now adductor magnus, the biggest of the inner thigh muscles that pulls the legs towards each other, but also pulls the pelvis in a tilt. So we're going to get that ball right behind that thick tendon up at the groin, drop the knee in, and kind of wiggle up and down. So if you find like the inseam of your pants, that follows along that tendon, and we're working just behind the inseam, just behind it. And then you drop that right knee in. Now we're going to go down a little bit again, just a few moments here on each side. Ooh, it's so good. Adductor magnus. So if you've ever crossed your legs If you've ever stood with your weight more on one leg than the other, this is going to be a muscle that will need some attention and some releasing. If you have stress, if you've had trauma of any sort, these inner thighs are going to need some attention because they grip when there's fear and worry. So I'm pointing that out because really everyone needs this practice. There's no one that doesn't. All right. Oh, so good. Find a tender spot, sink in, sink with your weight, sit up nice and tall, sink the pelvis, lengthen the spine. Take another breath here. All right. Now we're going to switch sides. We're going to go right into the other side. Put that ball under the hamstrings. We're starting with the hamstrings first, hydrating and freeing the hamstrings. So I want to talk to you about, you're just going to follow along. We're going to do hamstrings, then we're going to do adductor magnus on this left side. So now I can take this few moments to talk to you about ankle instability, knee instability. We've talked some about last time. Almost always comes from rectus femoris, a point way up high near the pelvis on the front and slightly outside of the thigh that leads to that knee giving out or pain in the knee joint. And we said last time that often that's caused from hamstring tension, hamstrings pulling. So we don't want to just go to the source. We want to also go to what's behind it, right? What other muscles are pulling the muscles out of whack, the muscles that are crying out in pain or just can't function properly anymore. And that's often hamstring quad inner relationship. It's always hamstring quads when there's knee stuff. But then if the pelvis is off a little bit to the side or a little bit higher on one side, the hips go a little bit off to the side, then all the muscles that attach around and into the pelvis get off because they're not lining up how they were designed to line up. And things like one side, one thigh, one leg being stronger than the other, if there's more body weight going to that side in general, then those quads, those hamstrings, those are going to get stronger relative to the other side, right? Because more of your body weight might be over to that side. So that can lead to imbalances side to side. And then if we keep going down, if there's some way that our weight is shifted, we're going to start going into that adductor magnus now, shifted more to one side than the other. It also is going to throw off the calves and the ankle muscles, the muscles that lift the outer arch and lift the toes. And those muscles are going to get wonky, and then they're the ones that stabilize. So we're going to talk more about those in a moment. Let's pause the anatomy lesson. Find that inseam of the pants on the left side, find that thick tendon, get that ball right behind that, and then you have to drop that knee in. Drop that knee in toward center so that you can get the ball up in there, and then kind of wiggle side to side, maybe follow down just behind that thick tendon of, it's actually gracilis, those inner adductors. Ooh, so good. Adductor magnus just loves attention. It really needs attention regularly. So this is a really quick, easy practice that you can do throughout your day. And this is going to help shift the pelvis more to center, which takes strain out of the muscles that act on the knee and out of the muscles that are trying to stabilize the ankles. So in this way, we're addressing ankle instability by releasing the tensional imbalance of the inner thighs and the outer hips. And it just feels so good, sort of, right? It feels so good, sort of. So I'm going to go down a little bit further. We're just going to be here for about 30, 40 more seconds on this adductor here. Take a couple of breaths, breathing in your belly. Always remember to breathe in your belly. That reduces tension through the body, through all the muscles. Ooh, that's a good spot. Find one spot that feels like it needs a little bit of extra attention. find a way to lean into it or away from it or forward, play with the angle of your body. I'd like you to take 2 long, slow, deep breaths in your belly here to help release that tension there in adductor magnus. Awesome. All right. Now we're going to move off that ball, move the chair off to the side. I'd like you to do a little bit again of wide angle side to side. What you should feel is that should feel easier than it did. You could put your hands on the chair if you need. That should feel easier than it did before. It should already feel, your body should already be changing. You should already feel the difference there. So just a couple more side to side. All right. And then bend the knees a little bit. Toes are pointing out a little bit. They don't have to be totally forward. Knees tracking toward the middle toe. Drop your head, shake your upper body a little bit. And then bring your hands to the floor, walk the feet in, keep the knees as bent as you need to do that, and sit your butt low, reach the arms forward or hands to the thighs if you need to push yourself up to standing. Okay, now we're gonna go to the wall and we're gonna release the glutes a bit at the wall, and then we're gonna make our way down and along the outer shin, and that's gonna be amazing. Okay, so you might want your soft ball to begin, and we're just gonna go all over the glutes right now. Just letting it feel really good. And I want you to find, remember last week we found the sitting bone and we worked around that, and that's gluteus maximus. We're gonna get a ball in there. I want you to get all the way down. You know, you swirled around your butt a little bit. Now we're getting all the way down low. Find the sitting bone, and I want you to swirl the ball around the sitting bone. Feel where you feel those tender spots. Can you find a tender spot right at the top of the sitting bone? That's a gluteus maximus point. Gluteus maximus tucks the pelvis under, pulling the quads long, creating knee problems perhaps. So find a spot right at the top of the sitting bone. Take a moment there. You could do a little tilt and tuck of the pelvis while the ball is right there on the top of the sitting bone, right at the bottom of the pelvis, and then start circling around again. And I want you to just move the ball up a little bit, start finding the edge of your sacrum and go up and down along the edge of the sacrum. Some of you might enjoy using even a smaller ball. And the sacrum is that bone that's right in the middle of the pelvis. And so we've been working down here around that sitting bone. Now we're going to come up along the sacrum just for a moment, go up and down. And then we're going to start making our way to the outer hip. We're going to go across to the hip and then back to the center of the pelvis in the back. Across, almost all the way to perpendicular to the wall, and then back. So find that line. It's a little piriformis. Any of y'all have any piriformis issues or hip rotation issues? Just getting that line. We're going right from the sacrum and all the way out to the side of the hip and then back to the sacrum. And I'm just going to get closer. We're right at the sacrum. Turn the body, come all the way to the outside and then all the way back. Yeah, just find a nice little kind of line to work there. Just 2 more breaths here. Ooh. Feels good, yeah. And then now we're going to get right on the side of the pelvis. We're going to get completely sideways. Look at my feet, how I step one leg in close to the wall and 1 foot away from the wall. Both knees can bend, but I can use this outer leg to push so that I'm pushing my pelvis into the wall with that outer leg, right? And then I'm going to use the larger myofoam ball. And again, yours might be blue. I'm going to use that larger myofoam ball. Inside knee is bent. That helps that tissue to be soft. You might use the smaller ball. You might be using the soft ball. Any of that is fine. And we're just turning. So now we're going to the front of the pelvis, little TFL, through the side, gluteus minimus and gluteus medius, and then to the back of the pelvis, gluteus medius, little piriformis. So we're just kind of going all around the hip. And we're staying up high above the thigh, so we're in the side of the pelvis. Now you can use that outside leg to kind of push. You can kind of pump it. That feels good to me. I really like this pumping. It really helps to flush and hydrate the hip joint. And then I'm going to spend a little moment toward the front. So here we are on the side of the hip. We're going to come toward the front just a little bit to get to the front of the hip joint. That's our friend tensor fascia lata. We're going to go into the side of the hip with a smaller ball and then turn your body toward the wall a little bit. See how that ball stays right at the front of the pelvis. You can go just a little up and down here. See if you have a tender spot. You might and probably do. TFL. Let's take a moment here. It's another little hip flexor. This muscle, if one side of the pelvis is sitting higher than the other, then that means that if this side of the pelvis is sitting higher, then the space between the front of the pelvis and the femur here is long. That muscle is going to be pulled tight. And on this side, that muscle is going to be short. So when you balance the pelvis, those muscles on both sides can be more even. So now we're going to do all of that on the left side. So let's take a little break from the rolling. What we did was gluteus maximus, up across the piriformis, and then working gluteus minimus, little gluteus medius, and TFL. So what we want to do now is stretch these muscles. So one of the best ways to stretch them is to cross the leg behind you and then side bend. So I'm going to show it on the back wall. See if you can see that whole thing. Yeah. So it's the right side. So I'm going to stand with my hands to the wall. Right leg goes behind the left. Left knee can bend a little. And as that left knee bends, you're stretching through that side. Now you can add a side bend and open up the whole low back. It's going to feel so, so good. And those of you who indicated that you have low back pain, often it can come from this imbalance between the two sides of the pelvis sitting at different heights, you know? Great. And then just a couple of standing hip circles. Just 2 or 3 in one direction, then 2 or 3 in the other direction. Great. All right, now we're going to do that rolling on the other side. So we're going to do glute max first, starting low at the fine. We're just going to roll around all for fun right now. Just all for fun. Roll around here, circling all around your glutes, circling all around your butt. Feels so good. Doesn't have to be real slow, just kind of getting used to that. So good. And then now we're going to come to that. Now we're going to come to the bottom, finding the sitting bone all the way down at the bottom of the pelvis. You might have to tilt forward a little bit if you're having trouble finding it. And then circling around that sitting bone, circling around it. See if you notice often right at the top of that sitting bone, at that bony nub at the bottom of the pelvis, is a very tender spot. That's gluteus maximus. Gluteus maximus with the hamstrings tucks the pelvis under. So you can play with that sensation doing a tuck and a tilt. Ball's right here at the top of my sitting bone, and tuck and tilt with the ball there. This is brand new teaching. I don't usually teach this way, but I've just been playing with different ways to work with this. I've never taught it this way. It's like the world premiere of releasing gluteus maximus at the wall. It's fantastic. Okay, so now we've done some work there. Here's the sacrum in the middle. We've been down here. We're just going to come up, and we're going to be right next to that sacrum, right next to that bone. And we're going to go side to side. So you bump it into the sacrum, and then turn to the side, come to the outer hip. Bump into the sacrum, turn to the side, come to the outer hip. I'm going to step back a little. Turn to the side. And that piriformis, very famous muscle, sciatic nerve runs right deep to it. Someone here's having some sciatica. Yes, sometimes it can be getting compressed, that sciatic nerve, by this piriformis. So we just clear it a little bit. What I find is that often piriformis is misblamed for some of the sciatica issues, and working on a long healing journey for folks with sciatica right now, creating a whole new course for that, because sciatica can be tricky and it's horrifically painful. Okay, so now from here, we've been going across now. We're going to come out to this outer hip area. So we're going to set that ball in. Step the left leg in close to the wall. Right leg comes out. And then you use that right leg to push, to pump. And we're going to just explore the side of the pelvis and coming around toward the back. And you can play here, like, where's your stuff? Is it right behind the hip joint there? Is it right here, just above where the femur comes into the socket? Do you need, like I do, a smaller ball to access some of those deeper tissues? Get it right in there in the side and then come toward the front. That's TFL. And around toward the back. You might start to be able to discern there's like a thick tendon that goes up and down the side of the pelvis. That's the top of the iliotibial band. And we're just going right over it and around it to the back of it. Sink in just behind that thickness if you can find it. There's often a gluteus minimus point there that can lead to deep ache in the buttocks, sciatica stuff, and hip weakness stuff. So I promise all the stuff we're doing is actually addressing knee weakness and ankle weakness because we're just trying to realign the pelvis. So we're going to get real specific in those ankle muscles as we go down. So last couple of moments here, finding a little spot, maybe slightly toward the front of that pelvis in TFL. Take another breath. All right, and then from here, we're going to do our stretch. We're going to put the ball down, move your hips around a little bit, put the ball down, bring your hands to the wall. You step that left leg behind the right now. Cross the right leg over and in front a little bit, bend the right knee. As you bend the right knee, that's what pulls these tissues into a stretch, right? And then you could side bend. You can add a side bend into it. Opening the QL, the low back muscle that is affected by all of these muscles here. One more breath. Now we're going to do our 3 hip circles in each direction. So hand to the wall and then circling 1, 2, 3, and then circling the other direction, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, so now We're going to go down that iliotibial band, down through that quad. We're going to find that quad point at the front, rectus femoris, that causes knee pain and knee giving out. We're going to pause there. We're going to go down the iliotibial band kind of quick. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go along the outer shin. So from just below the knee, if you palpate along and feel, there's like a bony nub right here. And then from there, there's muscles that go down. So if I lift my ankle, maybe you can see they start to, it's a little bright. So we're going to follow along that line down to just above the ankle bone. These muscles are the muscles that lift the outer arch of the foot. When the ankle gets weak, it's often that it rolls or it's been rolled. So that ankle rolls like that. These muscles get overstretched and pulled long, and then they can ache at the ankle joint itself, along the top of the foot, anywhere along here, and it will contribute to pain in the arch of the foot, in this inner arch, when you're trying to do like child's pose or something. So let's get the ball, use that larger myofoam ball. Yours might be blue. I'll use the blue one for right now. We were just in the side of the hip. Now we're going to go below it. We're going to go down just a few breaths along here and then get in there, because we also want to release the calves today. So I'm going to get that closer and bring that ball right in. And then here, my outside leg is standing closer. The further out the outside leg goes, the more pressure, more body weight into the wall. So you can just keep that. That doesn't have to be too crazy, you know, it doesn't have to be too far out. And if you begin right below the hip joint, and there's often a little tender spot right at the top of the femur, right before that femur dives into the socket. Find a tender spot, sink in, take one long, slow, deep breath. Now, I want you to find where your pubic bone is. That point in the rectus femoris is right often in line or just above or just below your pubic bone. So you're going to turn your body a little bit, get into that kind of oblique line. So I'm not directly on the side. I'm not directly on the front. I'm in between the two, right? Start at the level of the pubic bone. This is finding that spot in the rectus femoris that when you have this trigger point, the knee gives out. And there's pain in the knee joint. Right there, it's often right in line with the pubic bone. You might have it slightly above. For me, there's nothing there, slightly above, right in line with the pubic bone, there it is, and then slightly below. I'm gonna stick with that one, right in line with my pubic bone. There's my tender spot. So a really easy way to find it, rectus femoris. You might even feel it down in your knee. Take one breath here. Great. And then we're going to go down a little bit in the middle of the iliotibial band, halfway down to the knee. And I want you to see, do you have like one spot, maybe down lower? We're going to pick just one spot here because we have a lot to do and we just want to help support this easing. So, and this muscle contributes to outer knee pain. So do you have outer knee pain? You might need to spend a little more time on this later. Find a little spot. Remember, the thigh is a tube, so you have to kind of twist your body so that you follow the curves of the thigh. And find a little spot. There's mine. Take a nice, deep, long, slow breath. I know you may have like 10 spots in here, and I'm telling you to pick one. The thing is, you're not going to be able to get every single spot at once. It's like almost too much for your nervous system. That's why you do a little bit every day. That's why I teach people to work on themselves, because you can't get enough massage to get all these trigger points out all the time. So just doing a little bit every day is so helpful. Okay, so now from here, we're going to skip over the knee joint. And I'm going to bring this camera all the way down to the floor. Oh, that's better. So smart. Now, we're going to bring this ball below the knee joint. So find a bony nut. We're just following right around the very lateral or very outside line. Using a larger ball makes it a little bit easier for standing at the wall. Move that out of the way here. And we're getting just below the knee joint. And there's still a little bit of that like moving. There we go. You can see. Ooh, and you might have just a really tender spot right there. Yes, you can use the smaller ball if you like. Now, can you start to like roll your foot in and out? Can you feel those muscles engage as you kind of roll toward the inside of your foot? Like if you roll toward the inside of your foot and lift the outer arch of your foot, can you feel that engage under there? You feel how it makes it a little more exciting? After you do that for a while, can you now just sink in? And then we're going to go down just a little bit. And often the tension tends to gather right up where we are, up toward the knee. Again, we're just right on the outside line of that shin. Okay. These are the peroneal or fibularis muscles, if you like fancy names, if you like the names of things. Fibularis, peroneus longus, brevis. And again, these muscles get pulled weak when you roll your ankle. They get long and weak, and then they'll reflexively contract to try to stabilize that ankle. And if you never clear the tension that lands when you have a slip or an injury, it's always going to bother you until you can fix it. And so important to know how to do this work, because who's not rolled their ankle? Everyone has rolled their ankle at one point. So now we're going to go above this bone is called the lateral malleolus. We're going to go just a couple inches above and explore in that area. This is peroneus longus. This will ache right at that ankle bone, and it can wrap, the pain of it can wrap underneath that ankle bone. And I've had folks who rolled their ankles 30 years ago and never had these muscles worked out properly. And they still had ankle weakness, or they still had like foot drop, or their things weren't working well, or they would have pain when they hiked for long periods of time. And just do this a little bit and it goes away. Like it's really actually quite an easy thing to fix. So this is our last moment here on this ankle on the right side. We've gone down the whole outside of the thigh and then down the outside of the shin. Maybe play with lifting and dropping the toes here. Maybe rolling in and out. Lifting the outer arch, lifting the inner arch, lifting the outer arch, lifting the inner arch. So now that we've just done that, we're going to move off the ball. I want you to shake out your foot a little bit. Shake it out, shake out the ankle. And then I want you to stand. Let's do this now. Let's stand with the weight on your right foot. Start to put your weight on the right foot, start to lift. Does that ankle feel sturdier? Can you lift up on your heel? Drop. Is that any easier than before? Just noticing how changing those tensional balances can make a really quick shift. It's probably not going to be 100%. You only spent 3 minutes, right? But over time, you keep doing this practice a little bit every day, it's going to make a huge difference. Okay, so now we're going to go back up to the outer thigh. And we were in the pelvis. We're going to go now on to that hip right below where the femur dives in. We're right on the outside. Now we're on the left side. I'm going to start way up high. So if I put the ball a little higher, I'd be right on that bone. I don't want to. If I'm higher than that, now I'm in that soft part of the hip where we were before. So I go past the bone, just below it. There's a little indentation right there. It's often tender right there. This can lead to just like an ache in the hip socket, pain in the hip. It can lead to outer knee pain. And so it can feel like hip bursitis. Just this little spot right here. And this is on a quad, vastus lateralis muscle. Find a little tender spot. Take a nice long deep breath. Relax your jaw. Relax your eyeballs. Yeah. Okay, and then now we're going to go down lower, kind of skip a few inches and just check this kind of middle section. And turning and twisting. If you don't have anything right there, or if you can't find one spot, move a little more slowly. Sometimes you have to kind of sink through some protective tension to find a spot. If you have outer knee pain, get that ball down lower and explore lower down just an inch or two above that knee joint and check and see. And whoever you are out there, find one spot, either by the knee or up toward the middle of that outer thigh. When you find a tender spot, sink in and take a nice deep breath. You might do a little pump, a little wiggle. And then now we're going to go right down to below the knee. Right down to below the knee. You might use the smaller ball. It's going to require the foot to be in much closer to the wall. It's going to be a little more specific. So trigger points in these muscles and the extensor digitorum and the peroneal fibularis muscles, blah, blah, blah muscles, again, can really, these are the muscles that get pulled and overstretched when you roll your ankle or when you slip and there's a little swoop. When that happens and these muscles get overstretched, they take a long time to recover just because they have contracted strongly to stabilize the ankle joint, to try to save the ankle joint from being damaged. And then they just they take their job very seriously and they end up staying contracted for, it can be decades. I've literally seen it 30, 40 years. And then I teach the person where to go, how to fix this, and their ankle pain is gone for the first time in 30, 40 years. The muscles may need to be built up a little more in strength, but the pain is often something that can be fixed really pretty quickly, as long as there aren't underlying joint dysfunction issues or something of that nature. I'm just kind of going along that outer ankle. I want you to just keep moving the ball down, explore that first upper section. There's a lot of stuff. And then we kind of skip through the middle. I mean, you can check it, but there's not a lot of trigger points going on there. And then just a few inches above the ankles. So I'm kind of at the bottom of that tensional area for the top. I'm just going to check and see if there's one more. Yeah, there's one. And I'm just going to sink in there. And you remember, you can roll the ankles in and out while you're holding on to that point, or lift the toes. And we're going to check that spot just a couple inches above the ankle bone. And seeing, do you have some tension along there? You can switch balls, try either the smaller ball or the bigger ball. I find because of the way that my ankle curves there, it might be a little easier to use the bigger ball there. So we're just going to find a little spot maybe and take another nice big deep breath. Okay, so what we've just done is gone down the outer thigh, skipped over the knee joint, and then down the outer shin. So the whole lateral line of the leg. Go ahead and do some ankle circles, do some heel lifts. And then see, is it any easier for you to stand with those heels lifted? Do the ankles feel a little more stable? Can you walk around on your toes, lifting your heels up? Does that feel any easier? All right, do a couple lifts. All right, great. So now we're going to get down on the floor. Okay, we're going to get down on the floor together. This up a little bit. And I'd like you to stretch your legs out. I'm going to adjust that camera again in just a moment. And do some flip-flops, right? Get the legs out, flip-flop, let the ankles be floppy right now. We're going to keep doing that for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Feel that energy moving through your legs, moving through your body. All right. Take a sip of water if you've got a water bottle nearby. And then now our next step is that we're going to release another muscle on the front of the shin and do some calf work. So I'm going to get you on the soft ball on the calves while I talk to you about this other front of the shin muscle. So get the soft ball, get that going, and then get that under your calf. And you can just do this kind of side to side and up and back, right? Calves, there's many layers of muscle going through the calves. The big, thick, bulbous muscle on the outside is gastrocnemius. And then deep to that laying over a bunch of stuff is soleus. And there's all these little toe and ankle muscles in strips here, tibialis posterior and flexor digitorum longus, all these different little things that pull the toes into a point. So right now you're just kind of playing and rolling around the calf. While you're doing that, I'd like you to start to notice this tendon right here. See how when I lift my toes, see how that tendon pops out right there? Watch that. There it is. It lifts that tendon. This belongs to a muscle that lives right up here along that outer shin, just to the outside of the front, okay? This muscle, tibialis anterior, attaches underneath that inner arch, and that's the cause of inner arch cramping. If you ever like put heavy blankets on your feet and it points your toes really strongly, and you start to get a cramp in the arch of your foot, or if you're trying to sit like this and you can't because that causes a cramp in the arch of your foot, that tibialis anterior is where it's coming from, okay? So we're going to spend some time here clearing. The calves pull this way, tibialis anterior pulls this way, right? So we like to work in those opposite muscle groups. The calf muscles are also opposite of these ankle rolling muscles. So having some balance between the two, very beneficial and helpful, and will allow the ankles and the knees to be stronger and sturdier. So we're going to get this muscle because someone said they get a cramp in the arch of their foot. So we're going to get this muscle right here along this outside. And the easiest way to do that is with that double ball, the rad roller. And so I'm going to show you how to do that. I like to do it on my block because then the foot it can hang off the block. So check this out. Double ball, that space is where your shin bone is going to fit into, okay? And what we're going to do is set that shin bone just below the knee joint, And then you're going to drop your hips off to the side, and that's going to drive the ball right there into that tibialis anterior. So here's how that works. Ball on the block or the box or on the floor. Shin bone drops right onto it. And you can kind of go up and down, but you'll feel if your hips go a little to the right with the ball under the right side, when you're working on the right side, that's going to drive that outer ball into that tibialis anterior muscle. I'm going to show it from the front so you can see how I'm shifting my weight. Put that in there. Okay, and then drop your hips a little to the right. See that? And then that drops the ball into that shin. Oh, so good. And then when you find like way up high, it's pretty up high, find a spot. I can feel that aching all the way into the top of my foot. And I'm going to point and flex. So I'm going to show you that from the side. And get in there and point and flex. So good. All right, and then we're just going to roll up and down. Don't beat it to death. It might be the first time it's really had some pressure there, right? And that's it. We're going to move off the balls. And then I do want you to sit back on your heels. And if you can, to go the next step with the stretch, you lift the knee, keep those toes tucked under, sit up tall, and stretch all through those muscles. Okay. Now, just for fun, if you can just check the other side. Doesn't feel nearly as good. This one wants to go away up high. This one is like, doesn't want to do that at all. So we're going to start back in the calf. Okay, so you're going to get the ball under the calf. Just lean back and swirl around the calf on that soft ball. Getting up high in the gastroc and starting to get into just hydrating the calf tissue. We're going to spend a little more time, a little more deeply in the calves next week in our final and grand finale class next week. If there is something that you were hoping would be addressed and it hasn't been addressed yet, send us an email to make sure. I think I'm getting everything covered. But I want you to, if you're like, hey, I want to make sure that this comes up next week, I'll make sure that I cover it or review it. I'm just using that soft ball. The calf tissue is very tender, yeah? You don't want to start with a firm ball. And most of my calf work I do with this soft ball. There's a couple of deeper spots I do with the rad roller we're going to get into next week that can create bottom of the foot pain, plantar fasciitis kinds of pain. Soft ball is usually plenty good on those calf muscles. All right, so now that we've spent some time getting familiar, start like flexing the foot. See, oh yeah, there's that tendon of that tibialis anterior muscle there. I can see it. I can see it pop up there. There's that tendon. And so you're going to spend just a few more moments on this softball. Someone had mentioned that they were having Achilles tendon issues. This is a great help for that. And tomorrow we're going to get more specific. So I could hear someone thinking, hey, my Achilles tendon thing, we're getting there almost. We're going to get there next week real specifically. But just this alone will help. This work that we do really going to set the stage and might even fix a lot of those problems. Okay, so now we've done that general calf rolling. And now we're going to get the rad roller, the double ball, perfect ball for getting rid of this. So if I lift my toes, here's that tendon. It goes up to this muscle right here, right along the shin bone. So we're going to drop the ball so that drop the shin in between the double balls. so that we're not pressing right on the shin bone. I'm gonna get on the block. Yes, this can just be done right on the floor. You don't have to use the block. I like to use the block because I like the foot to be hanging off so that I can point and flex or move the ankle as needed. So shin bone sits right there and rolling just down from the knee a little bit. You can start to feel like, oh yeah, there it is. And then if you're on that left side, just shift your hips over to the left. That's going to put that weight into that ball on that side. You can back off. You can shift your hips to the right. You want just enough weight where you can tell it's a special spot, feels kind of exciting. Point and flex is good while you're holding that point, tibialis anterior. Trigger points and tension in this muscle can lead to like a foot drop issue where it's just the muscles can't hold your foot up, or you might find yourself stumbling more, tripping more because you're not lifting your toes as high. So this is going to help take care of that. One more breath here. Oh. All right, we're going to move off the ball, off to the side. We're going to sit down on those heels. You can go into child's pose if that's the best you can do. And if your buttocks is lifted a little bit because of knee issues, that's okay. Just find the best way that you can work with it. Otherwise, you're sitting right on your heels. You're going to lean back and lift that left knee up. Now my left knee goes way up higher than it did before. Right knee lifts up high. Left knee lifts up high. There it is. Okay. I'd like you to come to all fours. Come to all fours. Almost making it through. Just a little bit longer together. I always like to and recommend that you put a blanket underneath your knees so that you kind of protect the cartilage if you have a firm floor. If you're on a carpeted floor, great, then you don't have to worry about it so much. But your hands are going to go about shoulder distance apart. Your knees are about hip distance apart. And we're going to move through a little bit of cat-cow. Tilting and looking forward as you inhale, tucking as you exhale. Okay, so we're going to add a few things to this. We're going to come back to neutral. You're going to stretch that left leg back. Aha. Okay. You're going to stretch that left leg back, toes on the floor. You see that? Toes on the floor, knee is lifted. And then you're going to start to push back into that calf stretch. You're going to push your weight back, and then you're going to rock forward, lift the leg. Toes come back to the floor, push your weight back. Even notice my right knee lifts off the floor a little bit. Bring the rock forward, lift the left leg. One more time, toes on the floor on the left side, push back. You might even feel strong enough to lift up into a downward dog, one-legged downward dog. Or you might just hover and lift that right knee toward your chest a little bit, core strengthening. Now you're going to drop that right knee back down to the floor. Keep the left toes tucked on the floor. Lengthen, lengthen, lengthen. Now reach the right arm forward. The left leg lifts. Stretch in both directions. Right arm reaching forward, left leg lifts. Can you have that left leg hip height? If that's easy, you can bend that knee, reach back with the right hand, and then lift everything up toward the sky. Back bend, then release, reach. Left knee comes down to the floor. Widen the knees, sit back in child's pose for a moment, palms up. Right back up, hands to the floor. Right leg goes back, right toes tuck under. Now notice that I'm staying nice and long through my torso. I'm not curling and collapsing, okay? We have a tendency to want to look and see what's going on back there, right? So we're gonna like curl and collapse, but just let those right toes tuck, lengthen through the whole of your spine. And then you're gonna start to push back like a calf stretch. So you're gonna shift your weight back, pressing the right heel toward the floor. Do that so much that the left knee lifts and hovers. This is core strengthening, right? Drop that left leg, rock your weight back forward, shoulders back over the wrists, right leg lifts, look forward. Right toes come down to the floor, press the right heel back, and you could lift that left knee up. You could even kind of go into a little downward dog, half downward dog action if you like that. It's going to put more stretch through that calf. Left knee comes down, weight comes back over the shoulders, right leg lifts. One more time, right toes to the floor. Shift your weight back. Hover that left knee up off the floor if you can. Try to not collapse and round in. Can you stay lengthened through your spine? Good posture through your spine. Left knee drops. Rock your weight forward. Right leg lifts. Left arm reaches. You could stay there. Or the next level is to bend that right knee. Grab the top of the right foot. Push the right foot into the hand. Look forward. Lift the foot and hand up to the sky. Release, reach back in both directions. Right knee comes down, left hand comes down. Wag your tail side to side. Sit back, shake your hands out. We're going to do one more core strengthening piece to stabilize around the lumbar spine. That building that core strength in a really good way will be helpful to stabilizing everything below. If your right hip sits higher, lift the left hip a little tiny bit as you begin. So I'm going to show that. We're going to come down to our elbows, little forearm plank. Stretch one leg back, then the other, and the toes, just like you just were. And then if your right hip tends to sit higher, just lift the left hip a tiny bit. Press your forearms into the floor, lengthen through the crown of the head, press the heels back toward behind you. And just take a nice breath here. Hug the legs towards each other. Hug the elbows back toward the feet. Hug the feet toward the elbows. And then lower the knees. Arms forward, extended child's pose, stretching through the upper body. And then you're going to make your way down onto your back for windshield wipers and Shavasana to end the class. So you could place something under your head. Knees bend, feet wide. And knees rocking side to side. Remember that thing that you like about yourself? Maybe you add persistence or perseverance to that. Because you made it. You made it through, and we're almost through the whole series. I can't even believe it. Next series up, we're going to skip a couple weeks, and the next series up, beginning mid-April, is a shoulder. 3 weeks of all kinds of shoulder stuff. We're going to do some special strengthening and stabilizing of the shoulders. That starts mid-April. Let the knees come up to center. Hug the knees toward the shoulders. And then the feet to the floor. And then you can stretch your legs out. Arms can be out by the sides. Big belly breaths. Let your jaw relax. Let your jaw soften, your eyes soften. Bring your attention to the back of your body and let your bones sink toward the back of your body and down toward the earth. And just start to roll your ankles around, maybe a little pointed flex. See how your ankles and your feet feel after that practice today. And start to bend one knee and then the other. Roll through one side, come up to sit. Any sitting position is fine. Even sitting in a chair is fine if that's what is working best for your body today. I'm going to just sit up on a little blanket. Great. And take a moment to balance those solar and lunar energies in your body by bringing the palms of your hands together. Right side solar, left side lunar, uniting them together, balancing the both. Too much solar energies can lead to anxiety. Too much lunar dominance can lead to depression. So just balance and navigate between the two. And take one more big breath here, sitting up tall, sitting with dignity. And as you exhale, bow in towards your beautiful heart. Namaste. Thank you for being here. It's my pleasure to work with you today. I'm going to stay and keep a look in the chat if there's any questions that you have. Happy to stay for the next few minutes and keep an eye on that chat. So again, I want to announce that next week is our last week. I can't even believe it already. And then we're going to take a little week off for Easter time. And then we come back April 15th on that Thursday morning. And we'll do 3 weeks, a series for the shoulder. We're going to address shoulder bursitis, rotator cuff issues, impingements, loss of range of motion, weakness in the shoulders, one shoulder rotated more than the other, numbness and tingling, all those things. So 3 weeks specifically on the shoulders. Of course, we'll kind of balance it out a little bit with some other stuff, but really focusing. So if you or anyone you know and love has anything going on in their shoulders or just needs some help, I'd love for you to share with them about the class. We're dialing in the stuff on the website, and so that should be up probably by tomorrow. Should be ready. I'm just checking to see if there are any questions, and I don't see any at this time. Okay, and so we're also going to make sure that we link that other video that I mentioned about what do you do if you have one side of your pelvis that sits higher than the other. It really does have an effect. Re-watch the beginning of this video. Watch those movement breaks and the like lifting the heels, bending the knees, doing little squats with the heels lifted, shifting your weight to one side, lifting the opposite hip first to help stabilize the pelvis so that the knees and the ankles can be more stable. Redo those movements and some of that beginning work. And I think that you'll find that will really help you throughout this next week. And since I still don't see any questions coming in, I thank you kindly, and I look forward to being here again next week for our last class. Take care. Happy equinox. Enjoy this weekend.